And I'm joined here in the studio by ALISON Sargent for a look at what's grabbing headlines in the written press. Hi, ALISON.
Hi, Molly.
We are going to start off with reaction to the reported ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. What have you been seeing?
Well, Israel was initially denying that the ceasefire existed, but the Times of Israel was pretty quick to acknowledge it. We can take a look at the article on their website from this morning. They say there are no rockets or airstrikes as fragile Gaza truce lasts through the night. And they point out that this truce, brokered by Egypt, ends just the most recent spate of fighting. It isn't the long-term deal that has been in the works between Israel and Gaza. And a New York Times article suggests actually that this most recent flare-up in violence was sort of a negotiating tactic in that long-term deal. They say Israel and Hamas were letting their guns talk, and they cite an analyst who says that the long-term deal, as this long-term deal was getting closer, well, it was important for Hamas to affirm their strength and to send the message that they're not making a deal because they're stuck or can't find another way to handle the situation. On the Israeli side, analysts told the New York Times that Israel was really trying to send the message that they refused to be threatened.
Meanwhile, we are seeing a lot of focus on the role that regional powers are playing in terms of trying to broker any peace deal.
Our press reviewer for our Arabic channel pulled out a few analysis pieces from the Arabic language press. This one is by a Palestinian journalist writing in Saudi paper Ashaq al-Awsat. He writes that he puts great faith in Egypt as a negotiator for this deal. He calls Egypt the mother of Gaza. Other countries may be trying to compete for that role, though. Another analysis piece examines the role of Iran, which has poured money and resources into Hamas. This editorialist accuses Iran of trying to stand in the way of this peace deal. And this piece from the I should mention, is from the London-based paper Al Arab, which aligns itself with the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia when it comes to regional conflicts. So something to keep in mind when you see that they are accusing Iran of trying to block this deal.
ALISON, let's cross to the United States. This is where we've got to the Capitol. Washington, D.C. is bracing for an anniversary of the deadly white nationalist rally that took place in Charlottesville last year. Right,
and this year it's going to be happening in Washington, D.C., and authorities in the American Capitol are bracing themselves for potential violence. You'll remember last year, one counter-protester was killed at that rally. Charlottesville denied the group's application to hold the rally again this year, which is why it's not happening in Charlottesville. And the Huffington Post has a really interesting article, actually, about how activists in the city are trying to take control of the press coverage surrounding white nationalism. Basically, if you're in Charlottesville and you want to interview local academics, clergy members, and educators, well, you have to go through a group that's called the Charlottesville Anti-Racist Media Liaisons. They'll ask journalists one question: are you planning on interviewing a white supremacist also for this article? And if the answer is yes, well, then they will not grant you an interview. Usually the media's main instinct is to go to both sides of a story, but this group says that in this case, well, that would really create a false equivalency between white supremacists and those who are fighting against them. And it would also give those white supremacists a platform.
Interesting. All right. Now, speaking of criticizing news coverage, some journalists are calling for a rethink in the way that some make fun of Donald Trump's relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Right. And we here at the Press Review are no strangers to cartoons like the one you see behind me, depicting Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin's relationship as romantic. Images like this one from an anti-Trump protest. And we also see it with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Well, these images have become really common, even in publications like the New York Times. And this writer from the left-wing magazine, Mother Jones, says that these pictures actually have very homophobic and sexist undertones, and we should be thinking about that. They write that they use the idea, basically, of gay sexuality to emasculate the two leaders, making homosexuality sort of a metaphor for political weakness. And they say, and this is really has been kind of a growing number of voices have been coming out raising this concern. So food for thought, Molly, as you look through political cartoons.
Indeed. All right. Now, finally, we're getting a lot of reaction to the latest out of Washington in terms of the announcement of the new Space Force. Tell us.
Right. This proposed new branch of the military already has its first mission, Molly, and you can read about it here in space.com. Space Force starts the important work picking logos. Following the announcement, Donald Trump's campaign team sent an email to supporters asking them for help making this choice. So you can see some of those potential logos here. Needless to say, it did not take long for people to start making fun of them, talking about a space farce. Farce instead of a Space Force, suggesting that really this whole proposal is a campaign ploy. You can see one Twitter user pointing out that that first logo basically riffs off the NASA logo. Others proposed some logos of their own, some of which are not really appropriate to be shown on television. I did pull out this one to show you, though. It takes the Trump administration to task for the situation in Puerto Rico. A reminder that the death toll was for the storm in Puerto Rico was revised yesterday officially, that over 1,000 people were killed in that storm.
Indeed. All right, Alison, thank you very much for that. We have to leave it there. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned. You're watching France 24.